Spread over 500 square kilometres of arid, rock-strewn desert in the Pampa Colorado Plains, the Nasca Lines are one of the world's greatest archaeological mysteries. They comprise of over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric figures called geoglyphs, and 70 animal and plant drawings called biomorphs. The lines are almost imperceptible at ground level, but from the air they form a striking network of figures and channels, many of which radiate from a central axis. But how did they get there? Who made them? How were they made? Was it aliens, as some believe? We go there for ourselves to see if there are any obvious answers. Once again, Manuel Messias charms us or annoys us, as the case may be, with his instruments in the song Ocarina. Before we get into the detail of the Nasca Lines, a quick review on how we got to Nasca itself. Our Peru series trip started in Lima. After that we went to Cuzco, then Puerto Maldonado, and then back to Cuzco and on to Arequipa. From Arequipa we decided to travel to Nasca by overnight bus, something that neither of us had ever done before or ever want to do again, even though this is one of the best bus services in the world in terms of ticketing, comfort, services and pricing. The reception area at a major depot like this is a business class lounge with all facilities. The lengthy bus ride from Arequipa to Nasca is 404 kilometres and takes 9 hours because of the narrow windy roads and dangerous Peru style driving, especially at night. The cost is only about $35 per person and includes dinner and breakfast, a big comfortable reclining seat, and there's an on-board toilet as well. Before the bus takes off, the attendant comes around and takes a picture of every single passenger, making it easy to identify remains in an accident. We arrived at the Nasca bus terminal at about 7 AM, shaken but not stirred. From the bus terminal, which is at the edge of town, we walked to the travel agent's office, and he then took us out to the Nasca Lines airport, just 4 kilometres away. There are quite a number of operators to choose from, and it's best to book direct, as we found out the hard way. But because I didn't, there were hassles that had to be sorted regarding the agent paying the service provider Aeroparacas, and this caused me a 3-hour delay. kgs. I'm way overweight. Way overweight. I need to lose.
It is.
Too big. Airplane's not going to take off. It was a fine day and flying conditions were ideal with excellent visibility. The small 8-seater planes are sensitive to weight and don't take off if there's any bad weather, so we were very grateful for the conditions. We had heard that the aeroplane rides can be quite violent here, due to the way the pilot flies the plane and also due to turbulence caused by thermal air rising from the valley. For that reason, Lillian decided to opt out and instead, on the next day, took a quick look at the lines from one of the observation towers on Pan American Highway 1. Once in the air, the Nasca straight lines became obvious, although to my untrained eye I couldn't distinguish what were modern dirt tracks and what were ancient patterns. The pilot sat in the left front seat and the guide sat in the right seat. Unfortunately, the other 5 passengers spoke Spanish, and so I only got the odd English word thrown at me, and as a result I had no idea what was going on. Once we were over the main biomorphs and geoglyphs, the pilot would bank steeply to the right to give the right-hand passengers a good view, and then promptly bank left steeply to give the left-hand passengers a good view. So this violent motion, coupled with the air turbulence, causes most passengers, including myself, to feel sick. The lines were made by the simple process of removing the dark, sun-baked stones from the surface of the desert and piling them up on either side of the lines, thus exposing the lighter, powdery gypsum-laden soil below. When you're in the air, this is actually what you see. And this is exactly the same picture that I took, but it's enhanced to bring out the contrast in the lines. So my $150 40-minute flight didn't result in me seeing any morphs or glyphs at all. In fact, it wasn't until I got back to New Zealand and processed the images and made this video that in fact I'd realised that I had actually seen them. The other minor problem for photography is that you have to take pictures through the plane's plastic tinted windows. Anyway, I do like the thrill of riding in small planes, and it was worth it just for that, and the scenery was great as well.
And
motion sickness?
not good.
Nah, wasn't much. After that ordeal, we were transported back to the agent's office to pick up our bags, then onto our hostel. Although the hostel was at the edge of town, it was only about 15 minutes walk to the centre, the Plaza de Armas, as Nasca is only a small place.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. Tyson! What are you doing with my shoe, you monkey? What are you doing with my shoe, you little monkey?
So Nasca to Ica.
What are you doing with my shoe? What are you doing with my shoe? Oh, give me that.
After settling in, it was my turn to cook, so I was sent out into the town to look for something to eat. Nasca has a population of 57,000 and lies at an altitude of 590 metres or 2,000 feet. This town would have disappeared into oblivion if it weren't for the fact that in 1939 Paul Kosok flew across the desert and noticed all the lines and figures, which he initially thought were an elaborate pre-Inca irrigation system. In fact, he stumbled on what was one of ancient Peru's most impressive and enigmatic achievements. Unbelievable. 10 solas for all of this. All you can eat.
I'm trying to create a lighting.
The next morning it was Lillian's turn to see the Nasca Lines by driving to a viewing platform 20 kilometres up Pan American Highway 1. Pan American Highway 1 is the world's longest motorable road and is 48,000 kilometres or 30,000 miles long and spans Ushuaia in Argentina to Prudhoe Bay in Alaska. And we've been on it. Some travellers on the road, however, have not been so lucky.
Fire.
Yeah.
Okay, no more. Ya, extintor, por favor, ajá.
Is that? It's a tower. We've been up.
The Nasca Lines were declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994. It's the hot sun and dry climate that preserves the lines. The area had its own special civilization, and they built the lines. Unfortunately, it collapsed around 600 AD. Since then, archaeologists, historians, geophysicists and travellers have wondered why the Nasca people took so much time, energy and care to engrave them into the earth. It wasn't until recently that scientists began to understand that the Nasca performed ceremonies in the lines and hoped it would result in water for their society. There are 2 viewing platforms for the lines, a few kilometres apart, and Lillian went to both of them.
This is taken not up the tower, but just from the car park, and not really that zoomed up. You can easily see it with the naked eye.
For some reason, and I suspect it was the $30 cost of the taxi ride, I didn't go with Lillian, but instead I stayed back at the hostel to check out and meet up with her later on at the bus station. So I decided to walk the 1.8 kilometre distance and enjoy the town scenes. I arrived at the Cruz del Sur bus terminal first, and Lillian rolled up a short time later with our bags. The bus company is the best in Peru. It's well organised and the waiting rooms are very civilised. Climbing to 2,000 feet.
Rice and yellow stuff.
Smells alright though. Free but compulsory entertainment, in Spanish, is included in the bus ticket price.
De habla hispana. Ellos desde 1998 han impregnado su sello particular mezclando los géneros del pop.
The bus journey from Nasca to Lima takes 7 hours and is very comfortable. We arrived in Lima in the evening, took a cab to our hotel and spent a few days in Lima getting ready for the final sector of our adventure, and that was to visit Iquitos, a jungle city, the most isolated in the world. In the meantime, we relaxed, well I did, by watching one of the very latest Star Trek movies. Spock's Spanish was just impeccable.
Nuestra similitud cultural me facilitará entrar en su computadora y localizar el dispositivo. Y mi madre era humana, por lo que la Tierra es el único